and my Wheaties, I'm good.
Right, now they had some hardware, Jay, that we needed to also make sure
We think alike.
We think alike.
Because I was going to ask Coach, you saw the bison just get off the stage, and you saw those rings they had.
Ooh.
You saw the bison.
What rings?
You saw the bison. You saw
the class ring?
I guess he answered the question there, huh?
Don't do that.
But
right, now they had.
I mean, were they class rings? That's got to be the talk of the town. Welcome back to HBC Flicks. It's your boy Kelly Flicks with another episode of HBC Football. Before we get into it, I want to talk about the back to school drive. Up On Game is putting out. So Up On Game, our homegirls are Up On Game, are hosting their second annual back to school drive. They'd like donations, backpacks, notepads, folders, pencils, crayons, whatever you can muster up. Because what Back on Fig is doing is they're going to give all of our kids supplies. They last year even gave out some college students supplies. So please donate to them. They'll be going on and doing this all the way up until August 12th. So every week I'll be on here shouting them out. But let's get into Coach Trey Oliver's comments of what he had to say, because I honestly kind of agree with him when it comes to MEAC football. This MEAC co-championship, I don't know what other conference does this or what other major conference does this, but in all honesty, when you look at it in football terms, either you win or you lose. Getting a ring for being a co-champion, okay, I get it. That's what the conference is all about. But when it comes down to who's the big dog, who's the winner, it's North Carolina Central. And Coach Trey Oliver let it be known at MEAC Media Day. He even called Howard's championship rings class rings. So I am agreeing with Coach Oliver. He even said afterwards that he doesn't agree with the conference championship game. They beat Howard 50-21. He said they put 50 points on Howard. Who would want to see that again? Would you pay money to watch that rematch? And if you really think about it, in all honesty, who would want to see that rematch? Keep it real. They spanked them. They got up on Howard, spanked them in Durham. So, I'm good. All right, so Flicks Playbook. What's the playbook for today? We're not talking all MEAC, y'all. Don't worry. We also talk about a little bit of SWAC news, man. Florida A&M, a week before the SWAC Media Day, Florida A&M has decided to suspend all football operations because Boston Richie, local rapper, Tallahassee rapper, made a music video inside the football locker rooms. And lastly, we'll talk about the CIAA Media Day. We'll have a whole recap. So the CIAA had some fun things to say and some fun coaches, and we got to see Bluefield State, who is now a member of the CIAA. But all in all, it was a pretty boring media day. It kind of felt kind of C-Spanish. It was like 3 hours and 42 minutes. I mean, I'm not sure whose media day has to be that long, but whatever. And then the 2-minute drill, okay? So we'll finally do our 2-minute drill. We haven't done a 2-minute drill this whole season. But today we'll talk about Tennessee State. There's an article coming out that already came out saying that Tennessee State should go into the SWAC, and we'll see how that looks logistically, and 13 teams, an odd number, whatever, right? Then we'll talk about Virginia Union, their new uniforms. Last year, they came out with some tight chrome helmets. This year, they got some new home uniforms. So we'll get into the MEAC first and the MEAC first team offense. Now, before we get into the MEAC news, I will say we were pretty correct on a lot of different things last week, college football fans. Kudos to us. One of them pats on the back, you know what I mean? Because the offensive player of the year, we guessed correctly. Davius Richard is our guy. The defensive player of the year, we were incorrect. We picked Elijah Williams. But somebody that I did speculate about was Khalil Baker, the FCS All-American that plays defensive back for North Carolina Central. He was the defensive player of the year in the MEAC. North Carolina Central got the clean sweep. We'll also talk about predicted order of finish. And in the predicted order of finish, I might as well pull that up now. Predicted order of finish, we were pretty good. We were 5 out of 6. The only difference is we had Delaware State going 5th and Norfolk State going 6th. The rest of this standings, I guess it's completely. It's word bar for bar. We did that. So shout out to us college football fans. We're on top of it. We're doing our thing, man. All right, so from there, we talk about our different All-Americans, right? Our MEAC All-Conference team. So Davius Richard, of course, is head honcho. He's a quarterback one in HBCU football. He's a quarterback one in the MEAC. Quinn Williams has a short ways away, but he has a ways away. I don't see any quarterbacks, honestly, that are very close to Davius Richard's caliber when it comes to quarterbacks. All right, then his running mate is Mookie Collier. His running back. Latrell Collier is a shifty running back with some pretty crazy speed and elusiveness, okay? When he gets downfield, he gets away from you. You don't want to let Mookie Collier get going because you will not be able to catch him. He also has excelled in the passing game too. So I think this year will take another step in the passing game and receiving and become another factor for this North Carolina Central offense that's already very potent. They returned their top receiver, Devin Smith, who you also see is on this all-conference list. He is one of the most one of the safest. He's like a nice safety net. He's a great possession receiver that also has some breakaway speed and can make some plays and get into the end zone. But to me, his catching ability is what sets him apart from a lot of these other MEAC receivers. Going back to running backs, Marquise Gillis, a running back I've talked about quite some during this offseason, hasn't gotten enough recognition, quite honestly, for what he has done. He didn't even get invited to MEAC Media Day. Wade, the other running back, was actually invited instead of Marquise Gillis. But Marquise Gillis, I think, is probably, if he not the best running back in the MEAC, second best running back in the MEAC, easily. Then we got Casey Hawthorne at wide receiver, my Swiss Army knife. I love Casey Hawthorne. He actually had more carries last year than he had receptions, but that's because he's a baller. When you're a baller, you got to get the ball in your hands at all times. When you're a baller, you are the Wildcat quarterback, and that's what he was. When you're a baller, you get that person the ball as quick as possible. It doesn't have to be some downfield. I can hand you the ball off on a jet sweep. I need the ball in your hands. Think about how teams use DeAnthony Thomas, the Black Mamba. Think about how teams use like Tavon Austin. Think about how teams use those X factors, those Tyreek Hills. You got to give them the ball as soon as possible. No need for him to run a 15-yard route when I can give you a 5-yard hitch play. I could give you a screen pass. I can give you a handoff. I can line you up in the backfield, or I could put you at Wildcat and have you just catch the ball at quarterback, and now you make all the decisions yourself because I trust you. So Casey Hawthorne, to me, is poised for a breakout year. I think his usage will probably be through the roof this year, knowing that Antoine Murray out there, wide receiver, is gone, and your veteran presence is going to be Casey Hawthorne. O-line was pretty interesting. A lot of Howard guys up front. Howard had the best offensive line in the MEAC last year. It's no mistake that there are a couple of guys up there this year. Got 2 offensive linemen from Howard there and a tight end from Howard. So let's get into the defense. The MEAC defense. The MEAC defense was pretty tough, pretty stout. We see the guy that we picked to be our defensive player of the year in the MEAC, Elijah Williams, down there at D-line on the first team D-line. This MEAC defense is crazy. I gotta keep it clear. This MEAC defense is crazy. If you look at this defensive line, Patrick Goebel, absolute dog. I've been talking about him all throughout the offseason. They're even missing a guy, the other half of his duo. Jablonski Green didn't even make it on this first team. And the reason being, quite honestly, he had a down year. And players like Darian Brokenberg of Howard, a pretty good year, promising year. His other running mate, Jevin Jackson, had a pretty good year, a promising year. So with Jablonski Green's down year, I can see why he isn't on this first team defense, but this first team defensive line is crazy. I like the linebackers a lot. You got Aaron Smith back there. You also have Lawrence Richardson. I mentioned last week, I think Lawrence Richardson could have been the MEAC Defensive Player of the Year. And as I spoke to G on Twitter, what really stood out was the fact that Howard did not win that many games last year. And that kind of makes it hard to when it comes for award season. When it comes to winning awards, if your team isn't winning, you have a losing record, it's a little harder sell. Now, I say losing record with kind of like a asterisk because Howard did have a losing record last year. They were 5-6. They did well in the MEAC. Non-conference, they stuck it up. But in the MEAC, they only have 5 conference games. So if you fare well in the MEAC, they were the co-champions. I think you'll be chosen more often than not to be on these different teams. Yeah, I think you see that kind of based on this breakdown, this MEAC preseason breakdown. The 2 co-champions have all the pretty much majority of the players on these preseason all-conference lists. I think it's no surprise. It makes sense. You win, you in. I like it. Linebackers, they look very stout. Defensive backs are great. This is a great group of defensive backs for the MEAC, a very strong group. I'll start with Delaware State guy, Romel Harris Freeman. He is electric at DB. He's 6'4". 6'4", playing corner. Could put him at safety also. He moves around extremely rangy, but he's a problem for guys. He can get anywhere. At 6'4", his range, what he can do in zone is a little scary. When you're playing the cover 2, soft cover 2, or even playing in cover 4 situations where he can just simply roam and watch an offense, he makes plays. He's a little scary out there at defensive back. Another guy that's scared defensive back, Kenny Gallup. I thought he could have won MEAC Defensive Player of the Year this year coming up. But he didn't. I mean, this guy had around 90 tackles. He was a force inside the box. I'd like to see how his pass coverage looks this year. But if they want to keep him in the box, keep him in the box. Let's see what he can do as far as tackles for loss. Let's have him rush off the edge. I'd like to see him cover some guys in the slot more. I mean, I think the sky's the limit for Kenny Gallup. The more he's out there, the better he plays, in my opinion. Now, the guy who was the MEAC Defensive Player of the Year, Khalil Baker here, FCS All-American. He's the guy. He does it all. Great coverage, great tackling, great IQ. Man, it's not enough positive things I could say about Khalil Baker because he has checked all the boxes. He does it all. I think size would probably be the only asterisk that's on Khalil Baker, but I wouldn't count size against anybody, quite honestly, when it comes to football. It's all about the heart inside. So, lastly, we got Jatavian Morton. I thought Jatavian Morton was out, honestly. I thought he had went to the professional ranks this year. I did not know he returned at Morgan State. He's definitely cornerback 1 in the MEAC. What he does at Morgan State is erase guys. He erases one side of the field. I talk so much about corners that erase the side of the field because they are so important to a defense. Because I understand offensively how you need to be able to use both sides of the field. How if you get limited to one side of the field, or if your players can't get open in man coverage, it could stop your whole offense. It disrupts the whole team. A very strong cornerback is just as disruptive as a very strong edge rusher, because what they do is they change offensive play calling. You're unable to call certain things because that player is on the field. You have to work around him, and the guy you got to work around is Jatavian Morgan. If you don't work around him, he's gonna just pick you off all day. So that is my MEAC preseason all-conference players. Little breakdown, quick breakdown of them and what they have. Man, they look good. They look really good. I just showed you guys a MEAC predicted order of finish. This is it. I don't have many problems with it. When I went through this list, and I chose this list, right? When I went through and I chose this list last week, a lot of the things that I thought about was bounce back. What does a bounce back look like for South Carolina State? And after this MEAC Media Day, Coach Buddy Pugh came out and told us. He said that they have a new offensive coordinator and a new defensive coordinator. For a team that went like 3-8 last year, that's some good news. That's some of the best news I could have heard this offseason. Now, why it was under wraps this long, I have no idea. But offensively, they bring in Coach Kevin McGork. This guy was a coach at South Carolina State from 2008 to 2012. Between there, he was coach like the Australian national team. He went to go coach at a high school, I think called Piedmont. And he also recently was coaching at Methodist University as offensive coordinator. At Methodist University. Now, this is a Division III school. Okay, let's say that now. That's a Division III school. At Methodist University, he opened things up. This team averaged 31 points a game. This team averaged 437 offensive yards a game. That ain't special teams. That's offense. This team averaged at least 280 passing yards a game, around 150 rushing yards a game. His offense is very explosive, and it's based on simple spread, what would you call it, philosophies, right? We're so used to the RPO. We're so used to a lot of zone scheming. This guy, he'll run some traps, some 0-1 traps out of the spread formation. He'll run straight dive with running backs. He has the quarterback a lot of times sitting in the pocket, simply reading an entire defense. There's less movement by the quarterback. This quarterback they had last year at Methodist was pretty good throughout his time at Methodist. He broke 13 records. So I'm saying these things because I'm hopeful that this correlates to South Carolina State's offense. All right, even in a small way. If we can see Corey Fields sit back in a pocket and read a whole defense, I'd be very excited for South Carolina State. Now, do I think this is going to work? I don't think it works with Corey Fields. Honestly, I don't. Like, this is literally a sit back, drop back, sit in the pocket, throw offense now. This is no longer offense that moves the pocket, no longer an offense that tries to extend the plays with their quarterback or with quarterback keeps. This isn't that. That's Corey Fields' type of offense. This offense is predicated on completing passes, and Corey Fields has a bad completion percentage during his career at South Carolina State. He hasn't passed well. There's been times where he gets down in distance and he makes a deep pass to Shaq Davis or something, but when it comes to putting together a stream of good passes or putting together a good drive based all around the pass game or the quick game, we don't ever see that. So I'm interested to see how Corey Fields fits and gels in this new offensive scheme, but I am hopeful with South Carolina State because they do have quarterback depth. They do have Franklin back there and a couple other guys at quarterback that I think that can receive this offense and push this offense forward. So be very interesting to see moving forward. Corey Fields did go with South Carolina State to MEAC Media Day. So that's something to think about. Now, let's get into something that's been the talk of the town this whole weekend. The weekend is so filled with